Not enough visibility in your role. Amanda's words hit like ice water. I stared at her manicured nails drumming against my desk, the same desk where I'd spent countless nights perfecting proposals that bore her signature by morning. The Singapore summit is for senior leadership. She didn't even look up from her phone. You understand. My chest tightened. 3 years building the Asia-Pacific expansion strategy. My contacts. My relationships. My fucking summit. Amanda, I developed the entire. Sarah, please. Her voice carried that patronizing lilt reserved for children and subordinates. The optics matter. Marina Associates needs representation that reflects our executive caliber. Executive caliber. I watched her swipe through Instagram stories while delivering my professional death sentence. The irony burned. She was scheduling her nail appointment while discussing professional visibility. Besides, she continued, finally meeting my eyes with that practiced smile, someone needs to hold down the fort while the adults are away. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead like angry wasps. My hands trembled slightly as I closed the Singapore proposal, my proposal, that she'd be presenting as her own work in exactly 5 days. The document contained 18 months of research, cultivation, and strategic positioning. Every paragraph represented late nights and sacrificed weekends. I understand you're disappointed, she added, her voice dripping with false sympathy. But this is how you grow professionally. Learn from watching how senior executives handle high-stakes presentations. Learn from watching. As if I hadn't been the architect behind every successful pitch she delivered in the past 2 years. That night, I sat in my empty apartment staring at the wall of certificates and awards. 7 years at Marina Associates. 7 years of 18-hour days and weekend strategy sessions while normal people lived actual lives. I remembered the first time I'd missed Thanksgiving. Mom's disappointed voice on the phone, "You work too hard, honey." But I had plans. Senior analyst to associate director to eventually, this. Watching Amanda take credit for innovations I'd bled over. The Singapore opportunity had been my breakout moment. 2 years of cultivation, late-night calls with procurement heads in Jakarta, relationship-building dinners in Kuala Lumpur, careful navigation of cultural nuances that our competitors consistently botched. I'd mapped every decision-maker, understood every political undercurrent, crafted strategies that addressed problems companies didn't even know they had yet. The Kuala Lumpur relationship alone had taken 8 months to develop. I'd learned basic Mandarin phrases, studied Malaysian business etiquette, memorized family hierarchies within key organizations. My contact list contained personal details, Helen Wong's daughter's graduation date, Robert Lim's father's medical appointments, Kevin Tan's anniversary dinner preferences. These weren't just business relationships, they were carefully cultivated partnerships built on genuine respect and cultural understanding. My phone buzzed with texts from friends I barely saw anymore. Birthday parties I'd skipped. Relationships that withered under the weight of my ambition. My college roommate Jessica had stopped inviting me to her monthly dinners after I'd cancelled 4 consecutive times for urgent client needs. My brother's engagement party, my cousin's wedding, my nephew's baptism, all reduced to apologetic voicemails and expensive gift deliveries. All for what? To watch Amanda waltz into boardrooms armed with my insights, wearing my successes like borrowed jewelry. The irony tasted bitter. I'd enabled her rise by being too good at making her look brilliant. Every flawless presentation, every crisis averted, every client retained, all performed behind the curtain while she commanded the spotlight. I'd become her secret weapon without realizing I was also becoming her expendable asset. But something had shifted when she dismissed me today. The familiar sting of being overlooked was replaced by something cooler, more calculating. I'd spent years assuming competence would eventually be recognized. Tonight, I realized competence without visibility was just unpaid labor. My laptop screen glowed in the darkness, displaying the Singapore contact spreadsheet I'd built from scratch. 347 names. Companies, titles, personal interests, communication preferences, relationship maps, influence networks. 2 years of methodical intelligence gathering that Amanda would never fully comprehend, let alone replicate. I started noticing things differently. How Amanda's confidence crumbled when asked for specifics she hadn't memorized from my briefings. How she deflected technical questions to her brilliant team while taking sole credit for outcomes. How executives nodded politely during her presentations but called me directly afterward for clarification. The summit roster was public information. I memorized every attendee, their companies, their challenges, their opportunities. While Amanda prepared her talking points, I quietly reached out to 3 former colleagues now working for attending organizations. Casual check-ins. Professional courtesy. Nothing suspicious. My direct reports began bringing me questions they used to ask Amanda first. Small things. Technical details. Implementation timelines. I answered them thoroughly, never once suggesting they bypass the hierarchy. But patterns formed naturally. Junior analyst Michael Kim started scheduling weekly technical reviews directly with me. Amanda suggested I work more closely with you on the analytical components, he explained. She'd never made such a suggestion, but I didn't correct him. Project coordinator Lisa Park began copying me on client communications, for transparency. Marketing specialist Trevor Johnson requested my input on presentation materials, to ensure technical accuracy. Each interaction was professional, helpful, and completely legitimate. But collectively, they established my central role in our department's daily operations. People naturally gravitated toward competence and clarity, traits that required no announcement or self-promotion. During Tuesday's executive meeting, I noticed how Regional Director Blake Harrison's eyes found mine when Amanda stumbled through revenue projections. How CFO Jennifer Liu paused meaningfully before asking, and who developed these models? Amanda's hesitation lasted 3 seconds too long. I kept my expression neutral. Supportive, even. The perfect subordinate. But I was building something in the silence between those moments. A repository of competence that existed independently of Amanda's narrative. My phone collected screenshots of messages, emails, documents. Not for revenge, just documentation. Historical accuracy for professional protection. Friday afternoon, I received an email from the Singapore Economic Development Board. A routine follow-up about my presentation proposal submitted 6 months ago. I'd forgotten I'd CC'd Amanda when I'd initially pitched the concept through proper channels. The email was addressed to me specifically. The sender had kept my business card from our meeting in March. He referenced our discussion about supply chain optimization and asked for updated timelines on implementation phases. Technical questions that required deep understanding of our proposed solutions. I forwarded it to Amanda with a brief note, FYI, follow-up from Singapore contacts. Happy to draft technical responses for your review. She replied within minutes, handle it directly. You know the details better. The first crack in her carefully constructed narrative. Admitting, in writing, that I possessed superior knowledge of our most important opportunity. Monday morning brought Amanda's excited recap of her successful Singapore pitch. She'd landed us the keynote slot through strategic relationship building, she announced to our team. The performance was masterful, confident gestures, knowing smiles, subtle implications that she'd personally charmed decision-makers into submission. I smiled and congratulated her. Then I quietly forwarded the Economic Development Board's email to Blake Harrison with a simple note, FYI, they've requested technical follow-up directly. Happy to coordinate response. Blake's response came within an hour, let's discuss this afternoon. Bring all Singapore materials. By Wednesday, my calendar filled with informal consultations. Blake needed comprehensive Asia-Pacific market analysis, including regulatory landscapes I'd mapped during 18 months of research. Jennifer wanted detailed budget projections for potential expansion phases, complete with currency hedging strategies and local partnership cost structures. CEO Thomas Brennan's assistant requested background materials for his upcoming board presentation, specifically, technical implementation timelines and risk assessment frameworks. None of these requests went through Amanda. Each executive had realized they needed information she couldn't provide. I provided exactly what was asked, no more, no less. Professional. Thorough. Indispensable. My responses included relevant context, potential challenges, and solution frameworks that demonstrated deep understanding of complex international business dynamics. Amanda noticed the shift but couldn't pinpoint its source. Her questions became more frequent, more specific, tinged with growing anxiety. What did Blake want exactly? Why was Jennifer asking about Malaysian procurement regulations? Has Thomas mentioned specific Singapore project details? Are you sure they didn't ask about alternative approaches? I answered honestly while revealing nothing strategically significant. Yes, Blake wanted updated market data. Yes, Jennifer needed comprehensive budget information. Yes, Thomas was interested in expansion implementation details. All true. All incomplete enough to leave her grasping for context she couldn't acquire independently. Thursday brought the first visible crack. During the executive presentation, Amanda referenced outdated Southeast Asian regulatory changes that would have invalidated our entire compliance strategy. I'd briefed the critical updates 3 weeks ago, but she'd been distracted by a client dinner at the new steakhouse downtown and missed the nuanced but crucial details. Blake's eyebrows raised with professional concern. That regulatory information seems inconsistent with recent developments I've been hearing about. I'll need to verify and provide updated analysis, Amanda said quickly, her voice slightly higher than usual. Actually, Blake turned to me with casual directness. Sarah, didn't you handle the comprehensive regulatory analysis for this region? The room went silent. Amanda's practiced smile froze mid-expression. 5 seconds of absolute quiet that felt like geological time. The updated framework came through last month, I said carefully, maintaining neutral professionalism. New compliance requirements significantly impact our proposed timeline. I can send the revised analysis with recommendations this afternoon. Amanda's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly, a micro-expression visible only to someone who'd studied her reactions for years. After the meeting, she cornered me in the hallway outside the conference room, her voice carefully controlled but urgent. We need much better communication protocols about regulatory updates going forward. Of course, I agreed readily. I sent 3 detailed emails about the compliance framework changes, but I completely understand you were managing multiple client obligations simultaneously. Her eyes narrowed slightly, processing the implicit reminder that she'd ignored documented communications while I was maintaining essential project knowledge. She couldn't argue without admitting she'd missed critical information I'd properly communicated through established channels. Friday morning exploded. I was reviewing quarterly reports when Amanda burst through my door, face flushed, breathing hard. Why are they calling you the keynote now? I looked up from my laptop with practiced confusion. I'm sorry. Singapore. Her voice cracked. The Economic Development Board just called Thomas directly. They want you to deliver the keynote. They said they've been working with you for months. The beautiful thing about truth is its simplicity. I developed the initial proposal, remember? They've been following up on implementation details. But I'm presenting our company position. Of course, I said gently. I assumed you'd want me to handle the technical delivery while you manage the strategic relationships. Amanda's face went through several color changes. She'd positioned herself as the relationship expert, the strategic thinker. But keynote delivery required deep technical knowledge she didn't possess. I need all your notes, she demanded. Every communication, every detail. Absolutely. I started typing. I'll compile everything immediately. But it was too late. By lunch, the story had evolved. Thomas had called Blake. Blake had pulled Jennifer into conference. The truth emerged in fragments. Sarah had developed the entire Singapore strategy. Sarah had maintained the client relationships. Sarah's proposal had secured the opportunity. Amanda's version, that she'd strategically positioned the company through executive relationship building, crumbled under scrutiny. The emails revealed her minimal involvement. The technical details exposed her superficial understanding. The timeline showed her taking credit for work completed before her first client interaction. Wednesday's regulatory error suddenly gained new context. Thursday's evasive answers appeared more significant. Patterns of delegation without credit became visible to people who'd previously assumed traditional hierarchy. By Thursday afternoon, Amanda was in emergency meetings. Damage control sessions where she couldn't control the damage because she didn't understand its scope. I continued working normally. Answered questions when asked. Provided documentation when requested. Never volunteered information, never threw anyone under scrutiny, never appeared anything other than professionally helpful. But the foundation had shifted. Trust, once lost, rarely returns quickly. Monday brought interesting news delivered with diplomatic precision. Thomas wanted to discuss my role expansion over lunch at the executive dining room, the same space where I'd never been invited during Amanda's reign. Amanda would be transitioning to focus exclusively on domestic client relationships, playing to her established strengths in local market cultivation, he explained with practiced corporate diplomacy. I accepted the promotion graciously, expressing appropriate gratitude while internally noting the ironic justice of the situation. The Singapore keynote had generated exceptional results that spoke with undeniable clarity. 3 major new partnership opportunities with multinational corporations seeking Asian market entry. 2 comprehensive expansion proposals from companies looking to optimize their supply chain operations. 1 serious acquisition inquiry from a European firm interested in our regional expertise. Results possessed their own eloquent language that transcended corporate politics and narrative manipulation. My new office occupied the coveted corner space with floor-to-ceiling windows. The view overlooked the harbor where massive shipping containers arrived daily from Southeast Asia, carrying goods that moved through supply chains I now helped optimize and streamline. The symbolism wasn't lost on me. I could literally see the fruits of strategic relationships I'd cultivated through years of patient, methodical work. Amanda and I maintained scrupulous professional courtesy in our restructured dynamic. She'd apparently learned valuable lessons about credit distribution, competence recognition, and the dangerous consequences of underestimating subordinates. I'd learned that visibility wasn't automatically granted through excellent performance. It was earned through undeniable results that couldn't be ignored or appropriated by others. Our interaction during the quarterly review meeting demonstrated this new equilibrium perfectly. She presented domestic client retention statistics with genuine competence and appropriate confidence. I discussed international expansion metrics with quiet authority that required no theatrical embellishment. We operated in our respective spheres without territorial conflicts or credit disputes. The irony wasn't lost on me during quiet moments of reflection. I'd spent years attempting to climb traditional corporate ladders while simultaneously building bridges that eventually supported my own advancement through organic recognition. The summit hadn't fundamentally changed my capabilities or expertise. It had simply illuminated competence that already existed but had been systematically obscured by hierarchical assumptions. My calendar now filled with strategic planning sessions where my opinions carried decisive weight. Client development meetings where I represented Marina Associates as a subject matter expert. Executive consultations where other leaders sought my analysis on complex international business challenges. The work wasn't dramatically different in substance, but the context had transformed entirely in ways that affected every interaction. Sometimes I wondered if Amanda truly understood what had actually transpired during those pivotal weeks. Whether she recognized that her casual dismissal had simply accelerated a process already in motion through natural organizational dynamics. Competence, like water seeking its proper level, eventually finds its appropriate position regardless of artificial barriers. The Singapore contracts were formally signed last week with great fanfare and executive celebration. Our expansion into Malaysia begins next quarter with substantial resource allocation. The Indonesian project launches in 6 months with my direct oversight and strategic guidance. All of it flowing naturally from relationships cultivated in quiet moments, technical expertise developed through careful study, and strategic thinking that existed independently of corporate hierarchy or political maneuvering. I never sought revenge in any conventional sense. I simply stopped hiding my capabilities behind someone else's ambition and allowed my competence to speak with its own authentic voice. The difference, it turned out, was everything that mattered in the complex ecosystem of professional advancement and organizational recognition.